The Butterfly's Dream by Curber's 314, Chapter 39, Sub Rosa. Once upon a time is now long, long gone. For those of you who desire that happily ever after which is due, I am sorry to disappoint. Reading this, by now you should have understood that life is hardly fair. How I wish I could say that were not so. How much I desire to assure you that the little boy and the little girl lived long and continued to dream night after night, year after year, living lives of adventure and fulfillment. But this would be a lie, and satisfying it might be for a while. Eventually it would be found to pale against the glaring truth. I would tell you if I could, but the truth is I don't know. What happened after the boy returned home is a mystery. The two would stop being able to see that marvelous other world, except in dreams which were truly dreams. A weapon waking it would bestow them only with a hunger that could never be sated, slowly perhaps, wondering if it ever existed at all. To quell my own dissatisfaction, I sometimes imagine his fate. I like to believe that he made it home with his comrade and partner in tow, returned in time to enjoy that which he had left behind, the seeds he had sown, and the things which had sprouted in his time away, both the good and the bad. As a self-appointed caretaker of the world, his garden would always be pruning. Even if he already staved off one plague, he would not let himself fall into complacency, because by then he knew that death and destruction always lay around the corner, but also beauty and illumination which sprout from the ground in insinuating to every world, and for that he would continue to improve himself, cultivating and nurturing the thing he loved, and continuing to improve himself, cultivating, nurturing, and continuing to imagine that the castle in the sky at the top of the beanstalk. One day, perhaps many years later, after the little boy had long since become a man, he would look up to that place on high. As he heard his name on the breeze, he would blink blindly into the noonday sun and sneeze, as if somewhere out there someone was talking about him. Walking by his side would be his teammate, his friend, his spouse, his lover, his family, sometimes with a plebeian expression, sometimes with divine grace, sometimes with a fiery temper and a scowl, but never the face of his dreams. He, they would look to him and ask, "What is it?" He would smile and reply softly, lovingly, "Nothing, nothing at all." In lieu of knowing this is what I like to dream happened. If it gives you satisfaction, you may believe it too, and no one will contradict you. As for the little girl, there you are! The author had to restrain his hand from skittering off the page and ruining the passage which had already been solidified, further restraining it from reaching out and slapping at the disturbance which now loomed over him, with a smile oblivious to the interruption she had caused. "I wasn't exactly trying to hide," voice snapping instead of the pen in his hand. "You also weren't exactly trying to pay attention," she admonished, unfettered by the annoyance in his voice. "This is a Huntsman Academy. What do you think he would say if he knew you were so easily surprised?" "I have no earthly idea." As he drawled, he noted that his writing had not emerged unscathed, and that a fingernail-long streak crossed through the last line. He issued a mild groan in irritation as she draped herself on his shoulders and started playing with his already messy hair. "Then how about an unearthly one? What good would that do? Don't stop that, and stop that. It interests me." Explaining both away with a smile, she none the less left him to flop on the plushy bed behind the desk, moaning towards the drab white ceiling. "It's the least you could do to indulge me after we spent so long looking for you." "Yeah, well, no one asked you to." "Of course not." The scandalizing exclamation lifted him off of his seat and had him whimpering as he came down, both from the noise right next to his sensitive ears, as well as the abuse his writing was suffering as it nearly tore in his anxious grip. "You should have known by now. Friends help one another without asking. I see you acting down, and I have a need to cheer you up. Do I look depressed?" Almost making a question rhetorical with a smile that was visibly bolted on. "Yep," she chirped, popping the rivets and causing him to deflate with a sigh. "What do you want, Ruby?" "I told you, silly." Gratefully, with a gentle hand, she extracted the wrinkled page and set it down upon the desk, without him resisting, sitting down in front of him on that low corner. "I'm here to cheer you up. You've been working on your writing almost non-stop for the past few days, avoiding people just so that you can work. I know you realize it, and I know you know the things I'm trying to tell you because I've read what you've been writing, Ian. Fine, I might be a little irritated because I've told you to stop calling me that, but you also told me also told me to call you that. That was for the disembowelization. My name is Kurama. I'm the only one of us here, damn it. Swearjar, ready to tear his burnt blonde hair out by this point, he just let his head smack loudly into the table, groaning again as he realized it smashed right into his current page, further rumbling the previous lines. The physical pain was nothing, especially when she resumed massaging his scalp, enjoying her touch, not that he would ever admit that even to himself. What am I what I'm doing is important. His defense was muffled by the particle board table, but that wasn't what made them weak. Besides, it's not a sad story, I don't think. No, it's a happy one, Ruby agreed, humming a tune which could have been familiar. I think that you're just forgetting that because you haven't been spending time with us, the real people, and not the characters. It's only been a few days. I'm so close to finishing. I'll hang out or whatever as soon as I'm done. You've been saying that for weeks. No, I have not. Sure, and I'm not braiding your hair right now, nearly knocking into her as he shot up, and then almost falling over as his chair balanced preciously on 2 feet, while steadying himself on the bedpost with one hand. He checked the back of his head with the other. He glared when he felt the telltale knot near the base. See, meeting his glare with her hands on his hips, you're such a party pooper. You're acting more aloof than Blake normally does. I resent that. From the shadows of the hallway, the woman in question materialized, no longer cutting a ghoulish image with the ragged hair and protruding ribs. I agreed to go along with you and help you find him, didn't I? Yeah. The light in the room remained the same as she brightened, and he dimmed. All right then, that settles it. 2 against 1. Yin, you're coming with us. 1, you never told me where. 2, you can't make me. And 3, I told you to quit. Oi, I heard voices. Rubes, Blakey, is that you? Bright as the sun, Yang struck her head around the corner. Aha! So he is Yin here? I thought someone checked already. I did. Blake rolled her eyes. He must have been actively trying to avoid us. Gee, I wonder why. Wondering, in fact, if he could still make a break for the window, but his pen and paper were still on the desk. With Ruby and now Blake between, he couldn't leave the words to their curious parcel. Plus, he hated using the electrical scrolls. Yeah, cutting off his grumbling as well as his exit, the busty blonde wrapped him up in a one-arm hug. I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to hang out with us. We're going to see the new Dead Smell movie with Juniper and Coffee, and we need you to balance the numbers. Please, it's not gratuitous violence and nudity. With physical emphasis, she pressed him further into her chest, which apparently had little more effect than when she tried with Naruto. Actually, the deal was buy 3 tickets and get the fourth free, saving him from having to stress test this assumption. The former resident stuck in the mud waltzed in and appraised the rest of her team disparagingly. So he would like to be the normal price. The theater caters to Beacon students after all, who need I remind are punctual. Weiss jabbed a finger as sharp as Merternaster at the clock on the wall to illustrate that they had only 5 minutes to catch the bullhead to bail. But we do need him, please. It's our last chance before school starts up again. Absolutely. How can we function without both yin and yang? It's the zen of partying. Somehow I think you'll manage. Trying and failing to slip away, he shot a pleading look at Weiss, whom he hoped was on his side. And my name is Kurama. Get it right? Nope. As the peep popped, his scarlet eyes twitched. You look like a feral version of Naruto, and none of us have ever met this Kurama, so we have to call you Yin to distinguish you from anyone else. The fanaticism of the room stilled as Weiss expounded this tidbit of logic. It didn't stop the hands on the clock, though, and she reminded the stupefied occupants of this with an irritated cough. So, are you coming with us peacefully, or do we have to do this the hard way? Honestly, of the threats aside, he doubted the little Reaper could do much to actually make good on it, even with all her teammates in support. But was it really worth his resistance? What was the point in trying to finish it now anyway? The pagers would still be waiting for him when they returned. But would he be back? Considering what happened every time they went out for a normal recreation, there was always the chance that something would go catastrophically wrong. In an interesting story, it will always would, and theirs was still being written. He was just scared to forget, that the rest might be lost forever before he managed to morph thoughts into words. All right, he relented, covering up his pointed ears to protest them from the deafening cheers. Just let me finish this first. Erased and defaced, written and rewritten, this latest attempt was still the best, even though it was barely legible by that point, so he was justifiably horrified when, as he reached to put pen to paper, the writing instrument was snatched from his hand, beyond aghast when the blonde scratched something across the bottom of his parchment, looking up at him with a goofy grin. There, she declared proudly, done after the ordeal with him, or after the ordeal, and with his body incapable of doing anything else, he let the four girls drag him along on their journey, where he would be witness and sometimes willing participant to their adventures. Eventually, coming to realize for himself, words always fell short, remembering the reason he stayed in their world to begin with. That secret so well kept underneath the guise of a rose-colored world. For now, though, he stared unwavering at the chicken scratch across his masterpiece, disbelief doing nothing to remove those two words from the page and from his words. The end. Deep within the night, when all hunters were asleep and weapons locked tight, a shadow stole through the empty room, amber eyes that split the gloom, her hackle raised, a sleeper she gazed, a snore, best she not linger more, creeping up to the forgotten desk, where paper and pen lay at rest, she filched one and then the other, while the owner lay under cover. A single stroke, but one which spoke of volumes yet untold, a masterpiece if she should be so bold. A silent laugh to avoid his wrath, she slipped from sight, having made wrongs right. As she traced back through the hall, Blake mused through the nighttime pale that there was still light within the dark, and not betrayed by the morning lark. To this end she left behind a single question mark. The end. End of chapter 9.